Hey guys, it's Morgan. Welcome back to another weekly Shlog. We got Kenny here, and we are working on dirt bikes. If you're new here to the channel, you found us because of a KDX video or a crash video or a review video. This is our weekly shop vlog or Shlog, where we show you all kinds of cool dirt bike stuff, diagnosing things, tools, tips and tricks, all the things, right? And yeah, so that's what we do. These usually come out on Mondays around 4. If I can make it happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but we try that. Yeah, it's pretty fun here, so consider giving us a subscribe and telling your friends about us. And yeah, here we go. All right, first on the lift is this beta that we worked on last week, week before, I don't know, I can't remember. I've been gone for a bit, so sorry that we missed a week, Shlog. I was up in Montana fishing with my dad, so sorry, but not sorry. Anyway, this is the beta we worked on before. It's got an oil leak and a coolant leak, and, well, actually, the coolant's not leaking. Maybe, I don't know. We're replacing the water pump because we have a leak on this gasket here on the inner clutch cover. So we've got an inner clutch cover gasket, an outer clutch cover gasket, and water pump cover gasket and seal. So we're going to yank that sucker off of there. We're going to get that fixed. This bike also has the check engine light that comes on, and it says it runs hot, like it's boiling. Sounds like it's boiling. I can't figure that part out. Like, I've talked to a few people here on the line, and they say that these bikes, these 500s, tend to run really hot. The fan works, so I confirmed that last time. So the fan's working. I'm not sure why it would still get so hot, but anyway. Also, the check engine light is a thing I can't check. I don't have the OBD2 reader. I need to get that. I have one, but I don't think it's set up to read this. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to replace this stuff now, get this back to the customer so he can either take it to a dealer or just live with it, because it doesn't seem to affect the way it runs after talking to him. So anyway, let's get this thing up in the air and get these gaskets replaced. But it was a bit disconcerting. All right, guys, we have got the cover off. It's in the ultrasonic. You can hear that. Here's the old seal. Pulled that sucker out. It's kind of an interesting system the Beta uses. So that's the impeller shaft. This goes on there. And then that goes through the seal, and then there's an O-ring there that helps to seal this from the, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I've never seen anything quite like that, but maybe it helps to make it better. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to take this thing. We didn't get a new one of these. It wasn't leaking, so like I said, I said at first that maybe it was leaking, but it's not. I looked at the work order, and plenty of coolant came out. Anyway, it wasn't leaking, so we're gonna clean this up and get this all cleaned up. We're gonna use some emery cloth, shine that up, make sure we don't have any grooves. Put that O-ring back on there. We're gonna put it all back together, and we're gonna go to install it. I'll bring you guys in. Oh yeah. All right, guys, got it all cleaned up. Look how shiny and happy that is. Looks nice. Got everything over here cleaned up, everything ready to rock and roll. So this guy, I paid attention to how it came out. It's got writing on this side and not on this side, and that side was up. And this side, there's the writing, it goes up. I don't know that it actually matters, because I'm looking at it and it looks like the seal is identical both ways. But we're going to do it the same way, because why not? Now we're just going to push this and get it started. There we go. Now we're going to get a socket that's the right size. Let's see. Well, I'm looking for the back side. You can see how that's a much bigger area. There we go. Now I'm going to set you guys down. Still going to try to do this by hand if I can. Going. Getting close. Now, I am going to finish it up with a hammer. I'm just going to hold it so that I'm not beating directly on the tray here. Actually, that's going to be hard to do. So, we'll put that down. There we go. And by using a socket that's a little bit bigger, I can't drive it too far. It ends up flush, and that is just like we like it. Now I'm going to take this sleeve, put it in, nice and easy. There we go. Take our impeller shaft, put a little bit of grease. So it slides in there nice. There we go. Ready to rock and roll. All right, now I've already cleaned this gasket surface. I cleaned the gasket surface on the motor. We're gonna go get that gasket, put it on, then we'll put this cover on, then we'll put the clutch cover on, then the water pump cover on. I got a brand new seal for that. I'm going to get this all buttoned up, put oil back in it, and we're going to fire it up and make sure it's not leaking. All right, guys, so the Beta runs great, no issues. The complaint was also that it was hard to start when it was hot. Last week, I think I already filmed all this. I checked the valves, and anyway, nothing wrong with it. I can't find anything wrong with it. It runs great, starts good when it's hot here. So anyway, call the customer. He's going to pick it up, beat on it, and hopefully we don't find anything wrong with it. It's all good. Now I have this KR250, I believe. Yeah, KR250. Not a lot of people even know these exist, and it doesn't run. The battery's dead, so I've got my super rad Tusk power bank, like jump charger thing, and it keeps coming off because I don't have it. There we go. Now all the lights and everything work, which is nice. It's actually, these things are really sweet, guys. Obviously, they've been out for a long time. Tusk has theirs now. Yes, link in the description for Rocky Mountain. If you use that, it does help us out quite a bit. But if you got a local person, go to them first. So now I kicked it a few times like that, nothing. So now we are going to take this off, get the air box open, and spray some brake cleaner in there, see if we can't get it to pop like that. If it does that, then we know we got a carburetor issue. All right. That's a good sign. That means that the ignition system is working. Means it's got plenty of compression to run. Just need to take the carburetor off and clean it, I bet. So, yeah, I'm gonna get the seat off, get the tank off, and get the carburetor right off of there. All right, guys, we got the carburetor off, and it has definitely been sitting for a while. It's green. I was able to get that off, but the needle won't come out. So, and there's a little bit of black, anyway, black tar heroin in the main jet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the slide and everything out. Hopefully the diaphragm up there is okay. Seems to be. Like, one quick check for that, guys, is to do that. And if you can hear that, that's a good sign. And then also, let me show you. The other check to make sure things are working. Take an air blower and blow through the top. And if it goes up and down predictably like that, diaphragm is probably okay. Although, with it as gunked up as it is, you got to be careful taking it apart, because it might be okay right now, but when you take this thing apart, it could be, you could tear it. So, got to be super careful. But I'm going to go ahead and get this thing apart. We're going to put it in ultrasonic and let it cook. All right, another little tip, guys, for ultrasonic. Some of them come with like a little basket. This one didn't. This thing works good. These little, I call them cajitas, which means small box in Spanish. Drill a whole bunch of holes in the bottom. You can take all your little stuff, put it in there. That way you don't lose it in the bottom of the ultrasonic, which I may or may not have known, done things like that. But then also it still gets ultrasonic, right? So this, I'm going to put it in here, even though it's just going to float up. That's all right. I think that is, I usually take the float ball, put it in there too. And not going to need that. Or the spring in there. And then we'll go dunk this stuff in. All right, guys, we got the carb out of the ultrasonic, and actually it's pretty sweet because the needle came out all by itself. I had to dig around in the hot water to get it out of there, but it's sweet. It came loose. Everything looks good. All the passages look good. We're going to take some brake clean and blast all this stuff out really, really well. Take the air nozzle and blow through all the passages, make sure everything's good, make sure all the jets are clear. We're going to put it all back together and reinstall this thing and see if we can't get her to run. Hopefully I don't need to buy anything. It all looks actually like it's in pretty good shape. Float bowl gasket looks good. Everything looks good. It's just was clogged up. So let's get this thing back together. All right, guys, we got the carb on there, gas is on, everything's ready to go. Turn the key on, and we'll pull the choke, and let's see what happens. Ha-ha! I like it. Not taking throttle great, but I think that's because I got the air box off and the air filter out. So it's probably too much air, too lean. I can still adjust the fuel screw if we need to. So I'm super happy with that. I'm gonna get the air filter cleaned and oiled, back in there, get this thing all buttoned up, and we'll go take it for a spin. All right, guys, a little KR250 ran great. Once I got the airbox cover on, ripped up and down, super good. So got the kid here working, that's awesome. Making him do stuff. The next on this lift is this 350SX, I believe it's a 350, I think. It's an SX for sure. Anyway, I guess the guy was riding it one day, next day he went out to ride it, didn't work. Right now the battery is dead, so we have a fresh battery, gonna grab that and chuck it in there, and then we'll see what is going on. All right, fresh battery, let's see. There we go. With this, seems super dry, and there's definitely dirt on the wrong side of the intake. Let me show you guys. All right, let me show you guys. So you can see it is dirty. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not good. So that's not good. The other thing is, I don't think I hear the fuel pump running. So try a little bit of this. Starts. Let's check spark, because I don't know. Just don't think that it's the motor, but it definitely could be. But if it was running and then it wasn't, it seems like probably not the engine, but we'll see. Yeah, no sparky. So there's one last thing we're going to check before we assume it's the stator, because the trigger coil on these things is what turns the, well, it times the ignition, and it also turns the fuel pump and everything else on. But there's a relay right here. Grab a new one, make sure.
All my brakes.
That's right. All right, new relay. Still no spark, so. I was just trying to call him, so to ask him, because it looks like this looks brand new, this stator wire, and on his paperwork he said it seemed like maybe no spark, which it definitely is, and this seems new, and I want to talk to him about whether or not someone else replaced this and either used an aftermarket one or something like that. Because everything else is, you know, pretty old. It's an older bike. It's a 2012, and so everything else has got some, you know, age on it. But these wires look brand new, and they weren't routed right either. So yeah, I want to know if he'd replaced these, and if he did, if you used an OEM or aftermarket, because it seems like, yeah, it seems no good. And it's usually the pickup coil, really, the crank position sensor, pickup coil, pulser coil, whatever you want to call it. It's usually what's wrong, and you can replace that separately, but I've never had good luck. I've always just had better luck buying the whole KTM stator with that thing, comes all together. It seems interesting that would be that case. So, yeah, we're gonna keep digging, and I'll make sure I'll check some specs and things like that, and make sure that it's not supposed to be, you know, different ohms or whatever. Just make sure the spec is wrong on this actually, and then we'll go from there, and I'll hopefully get a hold of them. All right, guys, next on the list is this 2003 YZ250F that bogs when he's riding it. So I tried to start it. It wouldn't start. It started with the hot start pulled in. It would idle, but it's, I mean, any throttle. I mean, just the barely twisting the throttle, it would die. I mean, just barely. It would just die instantly. I'm looking at it. It's got an Athena cylinder on it. So it has been rebuilt at some point. It's also got this crazy wiring for the stator, because it must have, someone put an aftermarket stator on it. So that's the thing. And I don't love that. I mean, the aftermarket stators for these are okay generally, but it's, I don't know. Because it obviously did not come with any kind of lighting. This thing did not come with any kind of lighting coil on it, but I pulled the spark plug. The one that was in it was fine looking, a little bit, it's not even really very dark, pretty good looking. And then I put a new one in it, still did the same thing. I tried spinning some brake clean in it, even though it seems like it's rich, and that definitely killed it. It wouldn't run at all until I kicked enough of that out of there. But then the same thing would just barely start with a hot start, which is, if you don't know what a hot start is, if you're new to dirt bikes and you've been riding fuel injected ones, or you just never knew what this little lever, that the little one does. If it's a big lever, it's a decompression. If it's a little lever, it's a hot start. It just opens up another passage in the carburetor. For air to help if you tip it over, something like that. So anyway, so it seems rich, so I pulled the jets. It's got the right jets in it for here. It's a 170 main and a 48 pilot, so it should be fine. But I still think it's electrical. So I am now going to be testing the stator. I might actually just pull the cover off because when I kick it, it has spark, but it doesn't seem great. Let me show you guys. I don't know. It's always hard to show the spark thing with this. Let's see. Oh, there it didn't really spark at all. And there's kind of blue. So that's obviously the old plug. Whoa. So that's obviously the old plug. I've got a new plug that I tried. Just feels electrical in my soul right now. I am gonna flip the carburetor at me. I can do that on this bike. I can spin it completely sideways and look in there, but everything was clean. Like the jets were clean, 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 clean. The gas doesn't smell bad. Everything seems okay. And if it was running and then stopped, that leads me to believe it's electrical. So again, the aftermarket stator is leading me down that path also. One thing I haven't checked is if the light flickers when I kick it. So I'm gonna check that, and then we'll probably just pop that cover off, drain the oil and pop the cover off and take a look at that stator, because a lot of times the ohms, the resistance will be good, but not good on, you know, it'll be like cooked. All right guys, quick update. I wanted to check the timing, cam timing, because I've seen these be off a tooth and do some weird stuff because the tensioner failed or whatever. So I took that apart, I took the valve cover off, I took the inspection covers off here. It's perfectly timed. Checked the valves while I was in there. They're all good. So now we are checking the stator. So we're gonna start with the pickup coil, which is the red and white lead right there. We're gonna go across there with ohms. We're looking for 350-ish, well, 270 to 350-ish. So set our meter on ohms. Again, we're going red to white. So definitely within spec. It's like 270 to 340, so we're in spec there. All right, now we're going to the charging coil, 1, which is brown to green. So it's the middle set of plugs. There you go. So the middle set of plugs here, brown to green. That should be 720 to 1,000 range, but again, and it's again, this is charging coil 1, exciter coil 1, I might call it. Oh, so that's too high. That's all we really need to see right there. Hang on. Yep. So it's 1,080 is the top. So that's really all we need to see. But let me see what the spec is for the charging coil 2. All right, pink to black. Again, up here, it's gonna be the top 2 here. Right there, pink to black, that should be 46 to 80 or something like that. So low ohms. Oh, there we go. So it's jacked up. Stator is no good. Peace out. Stator is no good. Not a big surprise on an aftermarket stator. Also not a big surprise on a 2003. And I'm not just super dissing aftermarket stators because I've used a lot of them. They're generally pretty good. This one's probably was a good one. It just got old. So, but also I have seen more failures with aftermarket ones than OEM. So gonna give this guy a call and see what he wants to do. See if he wants to keep his lights. If he wants to keep the lights, we're gonna have to get a similar stator. So I'm gonna have to figure that out, but there we go. It will start. It acts like a carburetor problem. Like I said, you got to pull the hot start, do this and that, whatever, but it turns out it's a spark situation. I can't tell you how many hours of my life I'll never get back because I was chasing a carb problem that ended up being an ignition problem. So yeah, good to know. It's a super easy way to test motorcycle stator. I found the specs on manualslib.com, which is manuals library, but it's manualslib.com. Search your thing, and they've got full owner's manuals, service manuals, all kinds of stuff on there. It's all free PDF. You can just, I didn't even print it. I just looked at it on the screen. So yeah, that ended up being relatively easy to figure out. Went through a few things, but that's good. Now we know that the motor's good. Everything else is fine. We just need a stator. All right, guys, next on the lift. That, by the way, that still waiting on the guy to decide whether he wants to do a stator. Sure, he's going to do a lighting one. We found one from Steely. They still make one. It's $200 versus the stock OEM stator is over $500. So probably going to be putting the same lighting one back on there and getting that thing done. But next on the lift is a 22-300 XCW that's got 86 hours on it. And the guy just wants me to go through it and check it out, make sure everything is good as it should be after around 80 hours. I just took it for a spin, and I don't know, it didn't run very well, and it seemed like it was lean. It's kind of pinging. I thought, well, I'll chalk that up to just the way these things are or can be. Right now I'm just checking to make sure the cold start isn't on. The air screw, I think that's way out. It's lined up with the paint, but it's like it's come way out. So I'm gonna check that because it seems like crazy lean. And then I thought I smelled coolant, and I looked on, let's come over here. It's got some aftermarket hoses, probably presumably to delete the thermostat. And you can see there's some wetness on that hose, which would be coming from here. And I think I can see a little ding, which happens if you hit this radiator like this, and it'll come back and it'll hit that. So I hope that that's all that is, and that we can get this thing dialed in for this gentleman. Might have to find a hose because I don't know if I have one. But yeah, you can see there's wetness here. I think that's spraying coolant every now and then, not all the time, but yeah, and it smells like coolant. So, and there's definitely some spray here. So yeah, I think that's what we got going. So stick with us here. Could be real interesting. All right, so my biggest concern is that there's not enough coolant left in this thing. He had a crash in a river. It didn't kill the bike. Like, the bike died, but it didn't flood it. It didn't hydrolock it or anything like that. It started right up. He said it was a little rough afterwards, but then it got fine pretty quickly. So he's obviously got this is busted. I don't know. We're gonna make a list for him, and he can decide what all he actually wants to do. But yeah, gonna let this thing cool off. I'm gonna pull the air filter off real fast, get that cleaned and drying. We'll drain the oil, and while we let this thing cool off, and then we're also gonna pull the pipe off and take a look inside the cylinder. Enjoying some iced coffee today because it is 1,000 degrees out there. And pretty good. If you guys have any recommendations on iced coffee, I just make it with espresso on top of ice. So it dilutes it, but turns it into good iced coffee. Let me know if you got good recommendations of either brand, beans, whatever, or how to make it. Looks like he's using no toil, which is not my favorite, but it does look like it's clean in the airbox, so that's good. All right, guys, real quick. I just checked the air screw. It was 7 full turns out. So there's no way that's where it's supposed to be. I got to figure out exactly what the setting is because I know you're really not supposed to mess with that too much, and that's I'm with that. I'm for people generally fiddling with their motorcycles and getting them tuned in, but on the fuel injected bikes, especially the TPIs, screwing with that air screw is not the best way. A lot of people do it to try to get the idle right, and that is not the way you're supposed to do it. So that is probably why it was running like crap for me and getting really hot. So I still think we got a problem with that hose we're gonna have to deal with, but the yeah, that's crazy. I got to figure out what that is. All right, guys, so I got it fired up. I put the air screw at 3 turns. It seems like generally it's like 3 and 4 is usually pretty good. And I fired it up, and I don't know, you probably can't see it, but it's definitely dripping coolant right there. So I'm gonna shut her off and let it cool off again. I didn't run it for very long. Let it cool off and see. I think what we can do is, because see that big bow in this, we need some of that bow to go over the power valve, but I think what I can do is I can actually take this off. I can cut it because I can see the nick. It's right there. Cut it just past that and pull it over, and we should be good to go. So, because you don't need nearly that much bow in it to work. So I think that'll do that. Hopefully there's plenty of coolant still in the bike. I think there is. I mean, it's still leaking. It's like a Harley, right? When it stops leaking, you're in trouble. So yeah, that'll be good. And then we can go through the rest of this thing. I'm gonna hit all the nuts and bolts, make sure everything's tight like it's supposed to be. We'll check spokes and all the good stuff. All right, guys, we got this all taken care of. It's really tight, but we got it done. So I think it's gonna be good. I'm going to actually take this piece, cut it. This is the piece we took off, and I don't think I kind of cut through the ding that was in it. But anyway, I'm going to cut this in half, and I'm going to wrap this around there so that it protects against that for the future. And then I'm going to talk to this gentleman and tell him to order a new hose in the future so that it will have the right bend and all that. But it'll be just fine right now. I'm going to get him through the next couple rides or few rides or whatever. So do that to protect that. Also, when I took it off, this was bent, the outlet here, and so I bent that back. I should have showed you, but I had people here. Anyway, it was kinked like this, you know, and so I just took a set of pliers and kind of bent it out and got it round again. And so we got that dialed in. We're good there. Super happy about that. Now I'm going to, I got the bike, I got the wheel up in the air. I'm going to put it in gear so I can roll it over since there is no Kickstarter. And I'm going to take a look inside that cylinder. I wish I could show you guys while I do that, but I will report back what I find. All right, guys, let me show you what I did here. I said we got a half a hose there. Zip tie to hold it. It's going to hold it anyway because it's pretty much just touching that motor. Yes, this motor's going to get hot, but that will insulate it, so we should be good. And I went ahead and did this side over here. Unfortunately, it's red because that's the hose I had, but yeah, so we should be good. Obviously, a big shot still going to mess things up, but that should protect it against small tip overs, things like that. So should be good to go. Yeah, I'm going to keep buttoning this thing back up, and then we'll fire it up here in a bit, and I'll bring you back in, see how she runs. All right, guys, got her fired up. I'm not obviously going to rev it too much in here. But one thing I want to show you guys, I've showed this before, but I always like to run the bike without the cap on the radiator so you can make sure it's actually moving coolant. You know, you never know. Whatever, you never know. You just want to make sure it's actually moving coolant before you button everything back up, because I've had things where, you know, the impeller's snapped off or, like, you know, disconnected from the shaft. It's not, anyway, cause lots of problems down the road. So always do that. Then we'll put the cap on there and get this thing fired up and get it out and actually rip it and see if it runs better. All right, guys, that's the end of the week, the end of the Shlog. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are here all the way at the end of this video and you have not yet hit the subscribe button, go ahead and hit it now. What are you waiting for? Obviously, you like us enough to stick around for like 30 minutes worth of video. So go ahead and do that. Hit the notification bell, all the good stuff. If you want to support us, links in the description, all that happiness. And yeah, we will be back next week with another Shlog and all week with lots of other cool things. So I love you. I'll see you guys in the next one.